It's the final day of the month of October 31st. You wouldn't think that this day would finally come, but it wouldn't come anyway in quite a very short while, at least from what I know. It has been quite a very short month for me. I don't know, maybe because it has been a busy one, that we'll figure out. But hey, we are finally here. Everything that has a beginning definitely has an end, apart from God's love. 31st of October 2022. Good morning, Uganda. Welcome back from the weekend. Welcome to a fresh new week. We are here eventually, of course, to take you through this day and also help you navigate through the whole week as we start off. My name is Philomena, Mastiko, and the weekend I could say that it was a bit 50-50. There's been a lot of tragedy, especially on the global sled, seeing a number of deaths here and there. Looking at Somalia, the twin car bombing where 100 people and more died. Looking at India, how many people died after that footbridge did collapse. Looking at South Korea, in the celebration of Halloween, very many deaths. So I could say that this one was not really a good one for very many people. But back here in Uganda also, we did see the ministry delivering its first batch of relief food to all the Ebola affected areas. These are the areas, of course, where it really did begin from. And I think that's good news. It's a beginning of, or it's a sign of hope. I don't know how we are going to be going away from that, but I know that we are already there and we will find a way around it. But first things first, I need to know, this month of October, how has it been for you? You can always tell us, get into our socials, but I need to know how my colleagues over here, what do they take away from this month of October as we are bidding our farewells? Good morning, Mollen. How are you doing?
Well, I'm all right. Good morning to you, and I want to say good morning to your family out there. Thank you very much for choosing to start Monday with us. Well, October has been quite long for itself. It's still October, I mean. But again, there is a lot to be grateful for, and it is the bad. There's always some good. And just this weekend, I witnessed how Ugandans are really taking it to another level when it comes to celebrating Afro Halloween. That was at Rust and Rhyme. And according to me, I'm like, okay, I think some of these cultures, yes, we are borrowing it. It's like, when did black people start celebrating Halloween? This was not our thing. But it seems like we're borrowing some of these cultures, and people are excited about it. You see the costumes and all that. And I'm like, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Maybe it's for the good that we start to adopt new culture. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good thing to see. But overall, the weekend was quite great. And obviously, I know there are a lot of Ugandans that can also testify to that, but also some sad news, as we shall be looking at in news updates.
Of course. About Halloween, Mollen, this is a question I had about 2 years ago when I started hearing different places here in Kampala celebrating Halloween. But I was like, you know what, I shouldn't really overthink it. If it's here, eventually we are jumping onto that trend. And let's see where it goes. And clearly, Ugandans are really taking it seriously. As the years go by, the celebrations become intense.
But my issue is, we don't really know what's the essence of Halloween.
What's
how
the story
Halloween
behind
was
Halloween?
Started. Yeah, it has a story behind it. And this was not our life. Whatever happened at the start of Halloween was in the US. That started right there. Now, how are we relating to that? What are we celebrating? As Ugandans, we should be able to, or as Africans at large, we should be celebrating events that started in Africa. But for us now to start celebrating something that happened in the US some time back, and the culture of how it all unfolded, that's Halloween. But for me, I'm like, no.
Anyway, all I know is that where there is party, a Ugandan will make an appearance. They will find a way around it. Good morning, Felix. Welcome back from the weekend. We did miss you on Friday. How are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm all right. Good morning. How are you?
Good. Feeling great.
Friday was, I think, I was caught up in a graduation of some of my students that had to happen in Mokono. Yeah, so I couldn't make it here. I had to be there very early in the morning. But Friday was good. Apparently, it also turned out to be my birthday as well, so it was a good time.
This man.
Yeah.
I don't know how the colleagues are going to feel about that, but that's an issue we are going to deal with much later on.
Nah, it is what it is anyway. But of course, you see, culture evolves, and every generation comes up with their own appreciations.
Yes.
A couple of events used to happen way back in our history, as probably as a country. You remember, people have lived for some time. You do notice that we used to have things like, we used to have something called Buyonjo to do those Gwangamuje things.
Yes.
Then
yes.
you have all the community getting up together to clean wells, roads, trenches, and all these things. Like, that was the community events and things that would put people together. But most recent, it has turned out that it's not, I don't know how you tell these 21-year-old, 22, 23, 24, 25, that tomorrow we have, we are going to be cleaning a community, and then you wake up like that, like they don't relate.
They don't know that. If you tell them, it's so new to them. Yes.
At all. So when you talk about things like Halloween, it's not culture for people here, but you people have lugezi, like, you know, I don't know what lugezi is. Like, you have, these millennials have seen me, have lugezi, have, so they'll jump on, even if you ask any one of them, what is the background of Halloween?
Yes.
And for the people who celebrate Halloween, at least I've been in some place where they're celebrating, and for them it's a big deal because they relate with culture, with identity, and they use it by them mostly to trade. If you've noticed, they use it very much to trade, and if you've carefully looked at it, they always use a particular plant as symbolic. I think it's a pumpkin or something.
Yes, it's a pumpkin.
The yellow pumpkin. It has a lot of relationship to the Red Indians, but someone is here putting on funny things, and they don't even know.
You see, the most annoying thing is that sometimes you find that the people who celebrate days like this, they give priority to days like that that have significance to the other people. When it comes back at home, like you did say, some of these practices or, you know, some cultural celebrations, they don't fully involve themselves in it. And now, you know, it goes to ask, well, where is your priority at this point as a Ugandan or as any other person? Why would you be celebrating other people's holidays and you're living out yours? But hey, like I said, if there is a celebration, trust a Ugandan.
So because these people look at what they are to be local. And that's been the biggest problem. People look at whatever we have as African culture or Ugandan or a particular tribe as being local. When you talk about your practices, they are local.
Yes.
When you talk about the language, that's why you hear these people nowadays, they no longer even love to speak their languages because they think it's local. So
anyway, it's not bad to be local. Okay, that is one thing I'm going to tell you. You need to be very proud of your nationality. You need to be proud of your culture, practices, your customs, your beliefs. I mean, it's part of your identity, and you need to raise that flag high when you're out there, even when you're within the Ugandan boundaries. Robert, good morning. Welcome back from the weekend. Did you partake in any Halloween celebrations around Kampala?
Good morning, team. Good morning, our viewers. Thank you so much for waking up with us. Well, when I look at some of these celebrations, the first one thing, I think we were brainwashed as Africans to look at what is ours not only as backward but also evil. I was at some place and this DJ announces that tomorrow everyone come with your mask, Taught a lot of funny things, and I'm like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? Because I didn't have anything like Halloween in my mind. So somehow someone calls me and says, well, come at such a place and see what is happening here. When I got there, people that have put on things, they look funny. Some look like skeletons, some look like scarecrows, some everyone, and the first, some look very evil, by the way, what they were putting on. Satanic, demonic. I'm like, what is happening here? And what came to my mind is what we are calling evil, actually, this was more of evil to my sight. People put donned in black, then they have heads of the devil, then have all funny characters. So I'm like, but how come these people are celebrating this? And even if someone just entered here with a back cloth on, you know,
it's going to be a lot of chaos.
They would all look, yet back cloth was originally what we used to put on, you get it? But they are trying to wear all sorts of things on top of their heads that even look like Satan. Though I've never seen the devil, but I have a semblance of and they are celebrating.
Apparently that's the theme of it.
Yeah, look like the devil, and they are celebrating it. But someone puts on their back cloth You know, he's so backward and ancient. Now you're copying what is, to me, and this is my personal opinion, looking so demonic, so evilish, and you're celebrating, enjoying. And for me, I want to warn Ugandans. One day we are going to reap from this Halloween thing. Someone's going to commit offenses, like even in these developed worlds, they do find them. Because people have masked themselves, people are hard to identify. Someone will go on and stab people and injure people in such nonsensical things we are copying. I'm not for Halloween. And I just said, no, I can't be here. Because I can't know who is who, first and foremost. They will disguise themselves. And I'm just like, I didn't know why for sure, why? If you're saying someone is who puts on a back cloth, someone who talks about their culture to a different level, that guy I think is a devil worshiper, Musamize. Then you're celebrating the white Musamize. I don't think this is really okay. But away from that, yes. Well, so much is happening, and Ebola is still with us. Our Ministry of Health issued a circular. Members, please be careful that you don't become a contact list of a person who was tested positive of Ebola, because according to the new guidelines by the Ministry of Health, you're not going to be allowed to travel if you are contact, unless you're cleared by the ministry. All airports, borders are having these updated lists of contact people. So when you get there, you're not allowed to leave the country because you're on the contact list until they have cleared you. Then second, now all our entry points, there's going to be screening where they take your temperature if you're leaving or coming into Uganda. So what does it mean? This could affect you seriously. Yes. Only be in places where you're supposed to be. And if you suspect someone to be having signs of Ebola, report to the Ministry of Health as soon as possible, because you never know how that could affect you. Imagine you have a flight and only to be told they suspect you could be a contact list. And remember, being a contact on the contact list does not mean that you have Ebola, because we've had many people on the contact list and they test negative. They have not acquired Ebola. Yes. But remember, you've missed a flight and they have to monitor you for 21 days. So be wise, be very conscious, and ensure you do not become a contact person.
And I mean, it's such a very thoughtful move by the ministry, because we're trying to contain it. We wouldn't want it to go beyond the borders. But also, speaking of Ebola, we know that again the ministry issued a statement, I think it was on Friday, where they did actually say that all VDs, they cancelled VDs and gatherings in schools. You are not allowed to go there as a parent. And this weekend, well, I mean, it's never too late. I mean, it's never
according to the academic calendar of Uganda, we all know when visitations happen.
Well, they did even cancel out I saw leavers parties and anything that has to do with children and outsiders and converging in one place. They canceled it until the end of this term. So even if it's too late, it's not extremely late. We have to do all that we have to do to make sure that we keep away this Ebola virus. Anyway, a lot is happening, and we're going to be taking you through some of the stories that did happen over the weekend, both locally and internationally. Robert, what do we have this morning?
Well, yesterday being a Sunday, there was so much of church activities, and we begin with Kampala Archdiocese, where the State Minister for Higher Education, Dr. Chrysostom Muyingo, appealed to religious leaders to continue working closely with the central government in order to facilitate development and improved livelihood. Muyingo was representing government on the 56th anniversary celebrations and bestowing of a pallium on Archbishop of Kampala, His Grace, that is of the Kampala Diocese. That was at Lubaga Cathedral yesterday.
Kampala Capital City Authority has raised a concern over the competences of border riders in the city. Now, the Deputy Executive Director, KCCA, Engineer David Uyimbazi, says 94% of the riders have no valid riding permits. He made the observation at the Uganda Brewery Limited Safety Awareness Week event that took place in Luzira. Now, Kampala Capital City Authority is planning to introduce a program geared at empowering border riders and improve safety of the city roads. The Deputy Executive Director says at least 50% of the road accidents in Kampala City and its suburbs are caused by the motorcyclists Now, this was disclosed at the road safety awareness event that happened in Luzira.
And moving on with a few days to the 27th UN Climate Conference scheduled for the 6th to 18th November in Egypt, a group of environmentalist activists have called upon the heads of governments and delegates to come up with a concrete resolution towards addressing the ever-increasing global warming. The group led by Bruton Francis is part of the Global Science Rebellion environment activists, with global offices in the UK, Brussels and America.
Now, Entebbe Municipal Council authorities are concerned over poor garbage disposal in the gateway of the country. This prompted the municipal authorities to launch a monthly general community cleaning exercise to keep the municipality clean. It is now mandatory for every household and institution to participate in general community cleaning every last Saturday of the month.
Now, looking at the international scene, starting off with the Brazil election, Bolsonaro defeated as Lula makes comeback. Brazil has taken a turn to the left as former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva beat far-right incumbent Jair Bolsonaro in the presidential election. After a divisive campaign which saw two bitter rivals on opposite sides of the political spectrum go head-to-head, Lula won 50.9% of the votes. It was enough to beat Jair Bolsonaro, whose supporters had been confident of victory. But the division which this election has highlighted is unlikely to vanish. It is a stunning comeback for a politician who could not run in the last presidential election in 2018 because he was in jail and banned from standing for office. He had been found guilty of receiving a bribe from a Brazilian construction firm in return for contracts with Brazil's state oil company, Petrobras. Lula spent 580 days in jail before his conviction was annulled and he returned to the political fray. "They tried to bury me alive and here I am," he said, kicking off his victory speech. Now, in more tragic news, at least 78 people have died after a pedestrian bridge collapsed in India's western state of Gujarat. Hundreds of people were plunged into River Machu in Morbi town. Local footage shows survivors hanging off the partly submerged suspension bridge. Reports say as many as 400 people were on the structure at the time. More than 80 people have been rescued, said Brijesh Meja, a state minister. The incident comes just days after the bridge was reopened following repairs. The 230-meter, approximately 754 feet colonial-era crossing was built during British rule of India in the 19th century. Known locally as Ajurto Pool, it is a popular tourist attraction in the area. Now, Sunday's accident occurred at around 1840. According to one witness, there were many children on the pedestrian bridge when it collapsed.
And away from that, a twin car bomb blast explosion near a busy junction in Somalia's capital Mogadishu killed at least 100 people, President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud says. Among the victims who were massacred were mothers with their children in their arms. The AFP News quotes the president. He appealed for international medical help to deal with 300 injured. The president blamed the Al-Shabaab military group for Saturday's attack, which targeted the education ministry. The pro-jihadist Somalia Memo website has reported the group has said it was behind the blasts. An affiliate of the Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab has engaged in a long-running conflict with the federal Somalia government. Now, Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg said on Sunday she will skip next month's COP27 talks in Egypt, slamming the global summit as a forum for greenwashing. "I'm not going to COP27 for many reasons, but the space for civil society this year is extremely limited," she said during a question and answer at the launch of her latest book at London's South Bank Centre. The 19-year-old activist had previously expressed solidarity on Twitter with prisoners of the core science being held in Egypt ahead of the UN 27th Conference on Climate opening in the Red Sea resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh on November 60th. The corps are mainly used as an opportunity for leaders and people in power to get attention using many different kinds of greenwashing, she said. So as it is, the corps are not really working unless, of course, we use them as an opportunity to mobilize.
Well, today being the 31st of October 2022, some of the things that we are celebrating is actually World Savings Day. And clearly here when you're trying to save, I mean, I don't know if Ugandans, maybe just in your opinion, to pick from you, Mollen, do you think Ugandans have appreciated the culture of savings? Do you think at any one point we've ever gotten into that system and maybe dropped it? Or as you see it these days? Now I ask this because there is a certain observation I've made, but I would really love to first hear from you. Do you think we have gotten into the system of saving as Ugandans?
Yeah, I do think that majorly it's a forced kind of saving, if you ask me. I don't know a lot of Ugandans that have really put it upon themselves, but this is an individual effort, if you ask me.
Yes.
But we also know that nowadays groups are benefiting somehow from government programs. So Ugandans have actually engaged in these circles because these are saving corporations. So by doing that, they are intentionally saving, although they are also targeting for government, involvement in the circles, but they are saving. And if you look at the numbers of circles that have come up now, they are far much better than we had five years or 10 years back. So I say there is progress, but again, it is individual effort. You could still have a circle group near you and even well known to benefit from government programs, and an individual will choose not to join. But there is progress.
There is progress, but also I feel like after the COVID-19, people have changed their mentality. I have more oftentimes had young adults, young people come out say, you know what, because you never know. You never know what's coming up next.
They also claim sometimes they don't have the money to save. The money they have is actually can only sustain them, and you're asking them to save it. Save what? That's usually the question, but usually by the millennials, like Felix Oris calls them.
The problematic generation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hand to mouth. What they get, they can only eat on that and
they
wait
live
for
check
another
by
day.
check.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hand to mouth. However, like Mollen talked about, I think the culture is growing. Even when you go to villages, you find more so among ladies. When you go to rural areas, I think they have really adopted this. They have their funny groups there. Bubina, bina, bubina, bina. You find everyone contributes this amount, then they get that amount and give it to someone to invest,
yes.
But you continue saving. I've seen that. I've seen some cooperatives. I've also seen those in this modern world where they, at least maybe at the end of the month, everyone contributes maybe 200, 500, depending. And then then they form something, give to someone, the group continues. So there is that. Then there is the formal one, definitely. The formal one, where now people are saving for bigger things. They can say, we save this amount of money, at the end of the year, we give to someone, either they purchase a plot or they do joint business from the savings. And then we go to the circles as well. But individualness, not so much that you find someone has their account there and they put their money. But also I'm told that at house level, housewives, the typical housewives, that they're the best savers. That out of what they are given, they always take a percentage and keep that. And at the end of the day, you find that she has some good money there.
Well,
and you wonder, and some have been beaten for that because the husband only discovers the lady has about maybe even $1 million over a period of year. And she's like, and he's like, yeah, Tokola, where did you get this money?
I mean, which is really very terrible because if you're saving, there is no bad thing about that. I mean, wealth accumulation could come from that. We are talking about saving yourself against disabilities, rather instabilities that would come, and when you haven't predicted them. I mean, it's a whole. Why would you be even turning violent because of that? There is just a very big problem. Anyway. We need to move on. And Robert, I know that you're holding some 2 bottles over there. What do you have to say to us this morning?
Well, I have the magic to good health, and these are Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Hallelujah Tamarind Drink. Actually, these products won an award. I think tomorrow I may have to present the award.
Ah,
yes,
okay, all right.
Because of the transformation, the way, and everything. So these are award-winning drinks that I'm holding, and that really explains why you should get yourself any of these. That is Hallelujah Tamarind, Hallelujah Ginger Tea, Hallelujah Banana Fruit Juice. I'll present the award, of course, to our viewers, and that will be tomorrow. So it's just 1,500, and they are great immune boosters. You're not only taking something that is sweet or tasty, but it has enormous health benefits. It will boost your immune system and guarantee you'll be more productive, you'll be healthy, and of course, that has an impact. You make money.
Well, there you go. If you had a reason to doubt the drinks, well, today we hope that we have put all those doubts to rest. It's Good Morning Uganda, Monday, 31st of October 2022. We're going in for an inspirational song this early morning. When we get back, we're going to be talking about something that I'm pretty sure everybody has had quite a fair share when it comes to the issues, when it comes to the challenges and all that. That is the housing facility in here, Kampala here, and Uganda at large. It is Good Morning Uganda. We'll be back after this. It's the final day of the month of October 31st. You wouldn't think that this day would finally come, but it wouldn't come anyway in quite a very short while, at least from what I know. It has been quite a very short month for me. I don't know, maybe because it has been a busy one, that we'll figure out. But hey, we are finally here. Everything that has a beginning definitely has an end, apart from God's love. 31st of October 2022. Good morning, Uganda. Welcome back from the weekend. Welcome to a fresh new week. We are here eventually, of course, to take you through this day and also help you navigate through the whole week as we start off. My name is Philomena Mastiko, and the weekend I could say that it was a bit 50-50. There's been a lot of tragedy, especially on the global slate, seeing a number of deaths here and there. Looking at Somalia, the twin car bombing where 100 people and more died. Looking at India, how many people died after that footbridge did collapse. Looking at South Korea, in the celebration of Halloween, very many deaths. So I could say that this one was not really a good one for very many people. But back here in Uganda also, we did see the ministry delivering its first batch of relief food to all the Ebola affected areas. These are the areas, of course, where it really did begin from. And I think that's good news. It's a beginning of, or it's a sign of hope. I don't know how we're going to be going away from that, but I know that we are already there and we will find a way around it. But first things first, I need to know, this month of October, how has it been for you? You can always tell us, get into our socials, but I need to know how my colleagues over here, what do they take away from this month of October as we are bidding our farewells? Good morning, Mollen. How are you doing?
Well, I'm all right. Good morning to you, and I want to say good morning to your family out there. Thank you very much for choosing to start Monday with us. Well, October has been quite long for itself. It's still October, I mean. But again, there is a lot to be grateful for, and it is the bad. There's always some good. And just this weekend, I witnessed how Ugandans are really taking it to another level when it comes to celebrating Afro Halloween. That was at Roast and Rhyme. And according to me, I'm like, okay, I think some of these cultures, yes, we are borrowing it. It's like, when did black people start celebrating Halloween? This was not our thing. But it seems like we're borrowing some of these cultures, and people are excited about it. You see the costumes and all that. And I'm like, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Maybe it's for the good that we start to adopt new culture. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good thing to see. But overall, the weekend was quite great. And obviously, I know there are a lot of Ugandans that can also testify to that, but also some sad news, as we shall be looking at in news updates.
Of course. About Halloween, Mollen, anyway, this is a question I had about 2 years ago when I started hearing different places here in Kampala celebrating Halloween. But I was like, you know what, I shouldn't really overthink it. If it's here, eventually we are jumping onto that trend. And let's see where it goes. And clearly, Ugandans are really taking it seriously. As the years go by, the celebrations become intense.
But my issue is, we don't really know what's the essence of Halloween.
What's
how
the story
Halloween
behind
was
Halloween?
started. Yeah, it has a story behind it. And this was not our life. Whatever happened at the start of Halloween was in the US. That started right there. Now, how are we relating to that? What are we celebrating? As Ugandans, we should be about, or as Africans at large, we should be celebrating events that started in Africa. But for us now to start celebrating something that happened in the US sometime back and the culture of how it all unfolded, that's Halloween. But for me, I'm like, no.
Anyway, all I know is that where there is party, a Ugandan will make an appearance. They will find a way around it. Good morning, Felix. Welcome back from the weekend. We did miss you on Friday. How are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm all right. Good morning. How are you?
Good. Feeling great.
Friday was, I think, I was caught up in a graduation of some of my students that had to happen in Mukono. Yeah, so I couldn't make it here. I had to be there very early in the morning. But Friday was good. Apparently, it also turned out to be my birthday as well, so it was a good time.
This man.
Yeah.
I don't know how the colleagues are going to feel about that, but that's an issue we are going to deal with much later on.
Nah, it is what it is anyway. But of course, you see, culture evolves, and every generation comes up with their own appreciations.
Yes.
A couple of events used to happen.
From UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
We bring you a fresh, well-researched program to help you identify opportunities for investment, job creation, growing your entrepreneurial skills, wealth creation, and social transformation.
We have a product that is ready for schools, supermarkets.
Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Every week we showcase opportunities for creating new products and services.
I now harvest a lot of cocoa. When I harvest it, I sell. After selling, I put money in my project. I have 2 projects. 1 is for construction of my house, 2 is for educating my children.
Excellence in innovation, the passion and drive to succeed, and the right mindset to grow your business. Create wealth, transform livelihoods. Brought to you by Operation Wealth Creation.
Get connected today with the My Airtel 4G smartphone, the most affordable smartphone in Uganda. You get to enjoy free 1 GB for 1 whole year. My Airtel 4G smartphone, your best value for money. Visit the nearest Airtel outlet today and get one at only 250,000 Uganda shillings. Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. You're watching Good Morning Uganda, and today is Monday, 31st of October 2022. You are with me, Philomena Mastiko, and in the company of Felix Nkunda and Robert Kirabo Nyonyintono this morning. And the subject matter up for discussion is decent housing in Uganda. How are we doing? Are you happy? Are you satisfied enough when it comes to the housing that we have here in Uganda as a citizen, as a stakeholder, and anybody in authority, of course, when it comes to that field? And of course, we would love to hear from you about the topic that is up for discussion this morning. Now, when we talk about decent housing this morning, we are looking at a home that meets the current statutory minimum standard for housing, homes that are reasonable enough in terms of quality when it comes to the citizens of Uganda. Are you happy with that? Now, why do we say that and why do we ask this? According to the Lands Minister, that is Judith Nabakoba, recently she revealed that Uganda's housing deficit currently stands at 8 million units. Now, the keyword here is decent. And also to go on, in 2020, the Uganda Bureau of Statistics put the deficit of decent housing units in Uganda at 2.1 million, which is really not a very small figure. And they did also highlight that over 900,000 housing units in the country are below standard. Now, these houses are distributed both in urban areas and in local areas. So it's not only cut out for, areas in the Central Business District or even the neighboring cities, but both urban and rural. Now, you would think that maybe we're doing much better, but when you see statistics like this, it's quite big, because a deficit here that is standing at about 8 million, that is not really small, Robert. And maybe just to get into it, why do you think our statistics are showing this decent housing for an ordinary Ugandan?
Well, first we must understand that now we are looking at the housing deficit of Uganda as a country, and which you rightly put where we stand. But also we must understand, when we talk about housing deficit, what are we referring to? Now, this is actually, in a simple definition, it is deficiency or lack of housing or houses needed to accommodate the population. So this, if my sister Philo says we lack about 8,000 houses, that means that that is lack of than houses. Now, when you look at the National Bureau of Statistics, they estimated that 61% of employed Ugandans live in rented houses, meaning much as they have where to sleep, but these are not their own houses. And 90 of these rent apartments for about 3 years. Then they resort to other ways of sleeping, meaning they now move from the apartments and they go to other levels, meaning usually that maybe when someone's just gotten a good job, that excitement, but later as responsibility comes on, as they advance into the world better, maybe they see an apartment wasn't what they should go, they settle for something less. Now, when you want to understand why do we have this, like you asked, first, poor planning. I want to tell you, in May 2016, Uganda government came up with what they called the National Housing Policy. This National Housing Policy had calculated, they had drafted ways of how every year we are going to have 600,000 houses built. And this was stipulated in the policy. And they had estimated, actually, very interesting, that come this year, 2022, we shall ensure that we do not have an housing deficit in Uganda, according to the policy.
Yes.
And it stipulates plans, the National Housing Policy that government launched on May 2016. So here we are, the plans in this policy have not been fulfilled, and at this special time, we lack these houses. But also, we must also understand what are the factors that make people lack accommodation. According to statistics, the problem is even deeper in Kampala. One, we do not have proper methods that even if we are to go to the employed, factor in quick ways of people getting houses. Recently, you had there was a suggestion that NSSF said we couldn't take one. That was aiming at seeing how do our savers, over a time, how do they use what they have, that they can get automatically houses? You know, of course, it has ventured into building some that can be mortgaged and all that. Then we lack also specific ways and easily and readily designed for the population to get houses. For example, many countries people get houses through mortgage.
Yes.
Because employers, the employment laws are very clear. People have permanent jobs, some have contractual jobs. There's job security that a person or a company would easily entrust someone to mortgage. Employment is a bit well organized, and many will tell you have paid mortgage for this house for about maybe even 20 years or 30 years, depending on what they went for. Because they are sure, the financial institutions are sure that this is something we can go through. But also you find that away from the employed, though, we have issues that we've not addressed as a country. As you're talking about improving or getting houses or accommodation for people, which is a basic right and a basic need, because man needs food, shelter, and of course health. So housing is a basic need, shelter is a basic need that a human being must have. So as we are looking at ways of ensuring that people get decent, and the word you've used, decent accommodation, because go to the Katangas of this world, people will tell you this is where I sleep. When it floods, if you don't have a swing in your house, you won't sleep, because you need a bed that can move around and can live as water is running through. But these are accommodations for people. How many people are getting displaced every year? We have those statistics. That Philomena Mastiko, you had a home. By the end of 12 months, your home has been displaced. Go and find out how many people through land transactions are evicted. Every day in our news, we run stories of people who have been evicted. You hear of this number of acres, 500 homesteads at risk. A person comes, forcefully, illegally evicts these people, and what is constructed there? Sometimes it doesn't match with the people that have been displaced. So much as we are trying to ensure this kind of modern, we say for all groups of people, we have so many that we are displacing on a regular basis. Displacement is so much, rendering people homeless. And then we are thinking of a certain sector. I've seen some initiatives, but my only question has always been, now we are looking at Class A, Class B.
Yes.
What is happening for Class F, Class J? Class A, Class B, we are looking at how we accommodate them, while Class G, Class J, we are displacing them. And I find that a challenge.
Okay. Now, still speaking of this housing industry, clearly we have classifications in there, but also one of the biggest problems that the minister highlighted was the high cost of living, especially when it comes to the people in the urban areas. Now, when we go to the people in the rural areas, well, again, that's also another different story. Now, this makes me think, Felix, in all this, as government is trying, of course, to fill that gap to make sure that everybody has a decent, a place that they can call a decent home, whether you're a person in the urban area or you're a person in a rural area. Where do we place the real estate industry in all of this?
When you speak about housing, definitely it is anchored on real estate anyway. So it is at the heart of housing. But if you want to cause true sense to the analogy or the pedagogy of real estate, you find that one must inform the availability of the other. Real estate in its own sense is the word, when you use it in that format, people may look at it most recent as commercial or related. But if you want to take an angle of the statistical government analysis in terms of how people are settled, you may want to look at what we call the land policy. And that's what causes true question and appreciation of how later on people will be placed or displaced. Today in Uganda, if you want to understand housing as a matter of fact, its availability, its affordability, and its accessibility, you will want to first and foremost take time to understand what is the land policy. Because anything that talks about settlement has a direct relationship with land, in my opinion. One, who can own land in this country? That's the first question. Secondly, how can one own land? But also, how available is land to be owned? In Uganda, we have different types of land ownership. I think most of us know, for those of you who have been keen to appreciate our land practices, our land law, or the legalese that is intertwined in legal land transactions. One, we have people who hold land as a matter of freehold. We have land that is held communally. We have land that is held probably leasehold, just to mention but a few. Now, all these land methods or these land acquisition processes, the biggest question is, how affordable are they? Today in Uganda, if one asked you what is the average amount of land? Average, if you take on of course not in Kampala, but in the suburbs, because that's where everyone wants to settle. Most of the people are settling. If you look at the ring around Kampala, you will go to Gayaza, Wachiso, PG, I don't know, this side, you go to Nama, Mve, Mukono. How much do you think a plot of land is that can fairly accommodate a house?
100 by 100, at least 50 M.
Exactly. Now, that should inform the kind of housing policy a country would have. The absence of government, actually the direct absence of government in land transactions has made it very hard for the housing policy to thrive. The fact that land as a matter of ownership, as a matter of transaction, government has totally no role apart from the transfers. It is so hard for you then to work on this side of housing. Because one of the most exploited areas in the world is real estate. So, because houses are not built on fiber, banana fiber, even if you are building banana fiber is on land. There's a direct relationship between land and housing. Now, you cannot talk about housing and not want to talk about the land policies, land ownership policies. In this country, we have something they call Milo land, and there's land that is meant for you to own, and there's land that is Kabaka can only.
Yes.
The Milo maker.
Okay.
Now most recently you're hearing things like Vivanja, holders. All these questions that are not answered make it hard. He's talking about the issue of people who are displaced. Why? Land? Question. Displacement is as a result of what? Bad land policies. Or people manipulating the bad land policies, or people manipulating the unfulfilled land policies or laws in place. That brings you back to the deficit we are talking about. Because if there's a case that we have, and the president has many a times alluded to this even in his continuous, mostly when he's talking to the judicial officers. There's a case, the good thing it is a public case, it was a public case, the case of Lusanja. And I don't want to I just want to use it as a case example, not because I'm saying this was right or what, but just, you find that you have a situation where you have a Philomena, a rich Philomena here, and he says, I bought this village. And he has to evict over 4,000 families.
Yes.
Now, how do you how do you reconcile that with the deficit you're talking about? And this happens every day in Uganda. So the question is the problem the deficit in housing or the deficit in land law practices? Elsewhere in the world, if you may want me to be categorical, countries have stopped giving land to be owned individually in perpetuity. Apart from those few people who qualify, and for example, you go to countries like the UK, people who qualify to be like lords, you know, but land must be a common good. For you to match up what a challenge you're saying, you can't say that land, because let me tell you, here in this country, we have people who own square miles of land. Square miles.
And somebody would ask, is that even okay? Is that really supposed to be?
Because legal? That's what the law, and that land is owned in perpetuity.
Yes.
You can pass it on to generations individually. We have very many people. Now, that means also that there are people who are never going to have enough to settle on. And not that there's not enough land in Uganda, but everyone wants to settle where there is the basic needs of life. People will simply say, what's the bargain? Why here? People say, when I'm driving to Simanyaguru, I see a lot of empty land. People settle where there are commodities of life.
Yes.
You can't tell people to go and settle in the national game parks. One, in my opinion, the housing deficit cannot be answered in the absence of formidable regulations in relation to land acquisition. But two, what informs formidable housing facilitation is the availability of people to earn from the economic system or the economic welfare that is available. The biggest question today, and we can answer all this together, how much does an average Ugandan earn on a day? I don't know. We honestly, let's just think about it. On average, a Ugandan, let's say out of the 45 million we are anticipating to be, let's say quarter of that, probably 15 million, how much do they earn on a day? Let's even not look at the entire population, but how much? Do you think they earn over 5,000 a day? Now, you cannot talk about some sensible housing existence when you have not geared this population to sensibly be able to make money. I don't know if, because it's a chain thing. One thing leads to the other. And as here, listening to the Honorable Minister make these, and the truth of the matter is that, you see, there are three things. Housing can be available.
Yes.
Okay? Because it can be available. Land is there, sand is there, bricks, but it must be how can people, can people actually afford? Today in this country we have families, and I can give you a very clear example, and it's a shame for government. Go and look at the housing facility for government officials. Does government have a housing policy for its workers? It used to be there. Doctors were housed. Mulago had a very big yard for
Yes.
Doctors' village.
You get it. You go to the people who worked in aviation in Entebbe. Nyumba zalingao. But where are they today? Teachers in government schools. There was a policy. Teachers would leave the Buganda roads of this world. Those, you see those quarters there.
Yes.
Today they are who's staying in them. Every civil servant was catered for because government had a policy of housing. How is it today? A doctor is working in Mulago, but he's staying in Gayaza.
I mean, we have seen stories where, I think it was in Mubende again, around there, where doctors in some of the government hospitals closed up their offices at about 4 p.m.
Because they have to
rush back home because they don't have accommodation around them.
And that's where the discussion should start. How many government officials or workers are able to have sensible housing? sensible. Go to my brothers and sisters in police.
Don't mention.
No, because this is a concern of government. Go to their brothers and sisters in the army.
Before we actually get to an ordinary Ugandan.
Yes, because government is the biggest employer.
Yes.
National housing policy should be a national matter, not an individual matter. When you go to other countries, you see that they have tried to put in place these housing facilities because they own it. And I don't want to mention names because people will pick on it that, you know, but as a matter of fact, government must be the one to start this, looking at the land law policy. How do we make it friendly for anyone to be able to acquire and own land? Secondly, housing. Countries have what they call housing insurance policies. You talked about mortgages, but how many people can get a mortgage? A house today, condominiums are being sold at 600 million. This is a one-bedroom condominium. And not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yes.
That's also a sign of growth in real estate. But for those who can afford, and people buy them, by the way.
They do.
They buy them every day. But the focus can't be on those who are able to buy those ones. The focus should be on the minimum standard Ugandan who earns about 3,000 a day. Because it is a national matter. How do we make housing an available commodity for every Ugandan? Okay. Do we have the policies in place? Away from this paper tigers nobody is talking about, I hear policies.
Well, just my brother. This is the policy that we launched, that was in 2016, May, and it was clear the purpose of this policy, therefore, is to increase the production of adequate housing for all groups from 60,000 to 200,000 housing units per annum as to meet the housing need by 2022, to improve the quality of the existing housing stock, to promote an efficient utilization of energy and other resources. And the government here looked at one thing, partnering with the private sector, creating a conducive environment.
Yes.
I must say Uganda is a paper tiger. It is only implementation, and actually this policy talked about issues like the land policy in Uganda. This very policy talked about how government was to support the private sector.
Yes.
How government was to support commercial institutions. How government was to push for like subsidizing, that if someone is working on this, how do we help them get a better housing for all groups? But the problem is we've not walked the talk of this policy. Yesterday, I was watching news and I saw people in the land in real estate business. This gentleman said these plots of land would be a bit cheaper for ordinary Ugandans. But why are they expensive? That we've not gotten support from government apart from the taxation. If I buy an area and I'm looking at saying I buy a chunk of land, I have to ensure I put the electricity, which of course is going to go back to you, Philomena, when you're purchasing it. I have to bring a grader, grade this area. I have to work on the roads. At the end of the day, maybe a plot that would have gone, maybe a 50 by 25 decimals, that could have gone for maybe 5 million. Because I spent money to bring electricity from wherever it is. I spent money to bring water from wherever it is. I spent money to have the roads. This goes back and the plot will be for maybe 25 million because I must make profit. And all this must be addressed. That if government can be supportive here, then it would help that even us with proper regulation, maybe this would be fairly cheaper. So much of what was agreed here, the banks would tell you that, you see, if we had a specific enabling fund, that maybe we give this at low interest rate, basically for housing, we will do that. But you're not going to be commercial, we look at maximization of profits.
So the fact that we are seeing class you call them what? Class J. The different
class
of
J,
other people.
the class Z.
Because right now, one of the biggest reasons as to why we're seeing this deficit again, it shows that the excavated prices of building or, putting up decent housing for the biggest part of Ugandans has left out another class. You'll find an apartment right now goes for about, 700,000 Uganda shillings, just rent. Now, for a person who earns about 200 or 300,000 Uganda shillings, what happens to them?
There are also houses of 20,000.
Okay.
So you just need to know where to fall.
Is that a decent house, though? If we are looking for a decent...
I think the decent is relative.
Actually, Felix, even those
so
that
how do we get
have houses
people
on streets and they pay.
So how do we get those people back onto that balance? Yes.
And for me, Phil, I think it's what we were saying earlier, that we must have a universal approach to housing. The biggest challenge, and this is not by the way just for Uganda, for all third world countries, we suffer the same diseases, that there's a lot of gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
Now, the haves have built skyscrapers because, and this is informed by the rush to actualization. All of us are rushing to actualization. You get it? For example, we live in a same world, but with same air, same world, same country, same problems, but with different solutions according to our abilities.
Yes.
And that is character of third world. So government cannot tell that it's going to avail housing for everyone. It doesn't have the capacity. But as I told you, the things that inform housing are not necessarily government, but what is SEC talking about? Land policies. Is it easy for a Kirabo to acquire land, him being a tycoon, vis-a-vis maybe another person, what he calls the class, whatever? Do we have a balance in that? How easy is it for any other Ugandan to acquire land? You'll find that the people who have money, like one of the musicians sang that, Musango in today's courts. That's why you see a lot of displacement, because the rich are using the opportunity of being rich. So when you come to justice, how available is justice when you go to seek it in terms of land? Those are the things that, by the way, make it hard. That the poor cannot afford justice in terms of land ownership,
yes.
Not because they could be the right, but because people. So the things that we need to titrate: one, the justice system. How does it help make sure land policies are in place?
Yes.
Two, government. Government has the biggest mandate. For me, I believe they'll run around and pretend, but it all comes back.
It's more or less pouring water in a basket. Unless you find ways of blocking these holes, this is what we are doing. Because as you're looking for improving housing for people, there is so much that you have to prevent. If 1,000 are getting decent houses, I want to tell you 10,000 are losing what they would call a home. So if you want to ensure that you reduce this problem, it should be, how do you stop displacement of people? That is one. And how do you protect those? Second, government should take interest in looking at what is needed to construct a house. You can't tell me in this country you have iron ore, but building
cement, 35,000.
These iron bars, when government is looking at certain direction, we should see the desire that government is taking. So
yes,
why don't you reduce taxation on these things?
So in other words, if government fails to establish straight systems,
yes,
it gives power to all the other stakeholders.
You have land and you can't construct.
Yes.
People have land, but you can't construct.
It's simply going to be the bobby tails against the headbangers and all that.
The rich will become richer, the poor will become poorer, in other words.
The rich are buying of the poor.
Well, the housing deficit question still stands. How do we get to the end of this all? What role is going to be played by all the different stakeholders in ensuring that we cover up this deficit? Well, we will be having this discussion on 2 hours socials. Go over there and tell us what you think we can do or what can be done. It is Good Morning Uganda. We're going in for a break. When we get back, we'll be getting into the big stories in our papers.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Hallelujah Jingati drink. Tamarind drink, the flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100%